Good evening, everyone. We want to welcome those of you that are here tonight to the Union County Planning Board of August 6, 2019 at 7 p.m. I'll call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum on hand to conduct the meeting. Our first item is to take a look, ask the board to take a look at the agenda. And is there any additions or deletions that need to be made at this time?
Move to approve agenda.
Move to approve the agenda, okay.
Second.
Second, thank you, Everett. Appreciate that. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started with the first item of business. When you said approval, you talking about approve the agenda?
Approve the agenda.
Just the agenda only?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what about the next item? July 2nd, 2019 meeting minutes. Those were sent to you. Hope everybody's had a chance to look at those. Are there any additions or deletions that need to be made on that?
I'll move they be approved as presented.
Thank you, Everett. Do we have a second? Patrick, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Next item is item number 6. It's critical intersection analysis report. Mr. Black.
You have your, I start to say second string transportation planner, probably about the third string transportation planner. Bjorn is meeting his military obligations, and so he's off training, so you'll have to put it with me. Don't ask any tough questions, though.
Be sure and thank him for his service.
Yes, sir.
When he gets back.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
This is the 2019 critical intersection update. You remember we did one back in 2016. We identified 13 intersections, and of those 13, 10 were approved. This time around, we've got 15, and before we even got our report finalized, we got funding for 2 of those, and so we had to replace. So this is really doing a good job as far as bringing attention to our dangerous intersections and getting design and funding for them. Let me see if I can work this. With growth, you know we get traffic, and with traffic we get congestion and create some unsafe intersections. The intersection projects is one of the most cost-effective ways to improve the transportation system until widening can come along. So we do a lot of those that improves the system. Hopefully we'll follow that with some widenings. The new plan, the list of intersections, helps us apply for funding and for grants to build these intersections. We had a stakeholders group. We had members from Union County. I think we had nine of the 13 municipalities that participated. We had the schools, NCDOT, and the ED, Union County Economic Development folks also participated. We met from February to July to finalize these improvements. We come up with a ranking process. We responded to public input and refined the list. We had a really good outreach. We had over 700 folks to respond to our public input, public engagement. Some of the questions, one of the questions was, what is the most important issue we need to address? And 59% said safety was the most, and 38% said congestion. And if you'll see the map on the right, the red dots are, I probably can't read them from here, but the number of comments we got. For instance, you see the red one of 300 down around Marvin. We had over 300 comments about, 300 identified 300 different locations in that area where there was problems. The same thing is true up there next to Weddington. We had 146 over Union Trails, 107. Down between Wesley Chapel, there was 149. Those ribs. So you can see the eastern part of the county. The western part of the county. We had a lot more intersections because of that's where most of the growth is. You know, that's where the traffic is. So we had a lot of responses from there. As we moved to the east, you'll see the yellow ones wasn't quite as many, you know. There's one around Mineral Springs. We had 32 comments there, 26 up off of Old Monroe Road, 38 up next to Fairview and Unionville. And if you move further east, you'll see the blue ones, you know, 8 responses, 6, 9. So those are all the responses we got. And like I said, we had over 700. We came up with a process. Not only did we use this chart here, you'll see here are the 15 intersections that were identified. To your right, you'll see a scoring system that we came up with. You get points for certain things, like first 5 year crashes, you know, per 1,000 AADTs. You know, if you had 1, you got no points, but 1 to 2, as you move across, you got more points. We looked at volumes. You know, if you had 5,000 to 10,000, you got 5 points, and as it increased, you got more points. Same thing for growth. If you had low to moderate, looked at serious or fatal crashes in the last 5 years, there were points that way. Total crashes in 5 years, truck traffic and congestion. We put all these together to identify the intersections. Then we took the public input to kind of refine that. We also looked at more detailed crash statistics to come up with these 15 intersections. Here we have you'll notice the little construction barriers are projects that were already funded, intersections that were already funded. The ones with the pickaxe and the shovel are the ones that we're recommending for study, and the red and green dots are the 54 intersections that were identified. And for instance, if you click on one, just say for instance up here at Forest Lawn and Potter, if you click on that, you'll see it's in Weddington. The traffic is 3,600 and 9,200. There's been some serious crashes there. The intersections, Forest Lawn, Potter, there have been 2 to 4 crashes per 1,000. High growth area, total crashes 21 to 30. And so you can get that kind of detail. This is an interactive map. If you look at the, for instance, let me pick one out here, you know, here, Newtown and Potter, 3,000, you get more detailed stuff here. Also, you can look on the ones that were the construction down here at 200 in Rocky River. It's a roundabout going there. So you can see, like I say, the construction barriers are the ones that's been funded. The red and green dots are the ones we studied. There are 54 of them. And the ones that have a pickaxe are the 15 that were selected for study. We've already, we're in line, and it's pretty, they hadn't made the final decision, but we've got, looks like funding to do 6 of our 15. And by that I mean they'll do a design and they'll do cost estimates. And what that does from those designs, there might be several designs in the cost estimates, the best, they'll select one, and then we're in a better position to get funding to actually construct them. So what this does is it puts us, we've got a plan behind it, we've got a design to improve the intersection, and we have some estimated costs. So therefore, in order to, and these are all real competitive type things, we're in a position to get funding. That's why out of our first 13 of them, 10 of them got funded. So this is to put us into a better position to reach funding to improve these intersections. I would say that it's going to the Board of County Commissioners on August the 19th for adoption. And what we're asking tonight, if the Planning Board would make a positive recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to adopt this critical intersection study. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Black, the board?
I just got a question. Up at the, the ones that have the barriers, the construction barriers, those are the funded ones?
Those are the funded ones.
And so those are the ones that are gonna start at some point?
Right, right.
And how, is there anywhere you can go to find, when to start? anticipation is for that, or?
I think as you get close to it, probably with, the local DOT should have, what's gonna be, what is funded and when, some kind of timeline for construction. But yeah, those all have funds, so, if other things get delayed, but they're in the pipeline to be constructed.
Okay.
I'll get an answer for you from Bjorn if there's any kind of timeline for those that show the construction barriers, and I'll get that to you if there's a timeline a timeline for construction.
Thank you. Good. Any
Richard,
more questions?
yeah, thank you. On this, all these little dots and things where you're looking to do stuff, when you bring it before the county commission, is it going to have a priority of, this corner here is really the most important, this was the second, that's the third, or is it just, these are they, and someone else figured out?
Yeah, this is it's not priority listing, It involves, what we're doing too is not only is the county putting money, because matching funds, is the towns are too, And so, depending on which town wants to move forward with their particular ones, and I think they're pretty much spread out, that, of course, not every town got one, but they're spread across the map and stuff, and so it'll depend on, the towns who want to put money behind the ones that are on that list, the county and that type of thing, so, but I think that there'll be a list of the top ones. I'm not sure which ones those are now.
Who will make this priority list?
I think that the CARPO it'll come from them, which ones would be funded. And I'm not sure but I know there's not a, listing of the priorities of which ones they'll approve, I don't believe, unless, I don't have that, which ones if they've made that decision yet.
These intersections aren't limited to intersections that, the state and the city or the town could add money. Private development, for instance, could contribute towards these and move them along?
Yeah, that would be helpful. Right now, we're talking about, CARPO funds, the county's funds, and the town's funds. But what situations that's possible, we'd always welcome that. But I don't know of any ones that have been, identified for here would be a good place for private funds to go.
It's all those impact fees issue.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. After hearing this, do we have a motion from the board?
So moved.
Chris has moved to approve it. Do we have a second? Patrick? Thank you. All those in favor to approve the presentation as presented to go forth to the commissioners, raise your right hand. Okay. Thank you very much. Next, we want to talk about number 7, CZ 2019-008 Crestwind.
Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
At this point in time, I'm going to ask the chair to recuse me from the meeting. I have a conflict of interest in my practice. I have represented individuals and/or entities that may or may not have an interest in the underlying application under number 7. So I'd ask the chair to be excused from the meeting.
Okay. Request has been made. I'd like a motion from the board.
moved.
Thank you, Everett. Do we have a second? Louis, appreciate that. All those in favor say aye, or raise your right hand. Okay. Chris,
Thank you. I'm going to excuse myself.
you can excuse yourself.
Because
Yes,
my
you can.
understanding is it's best to have myself excused so as not to possibly influence just by my presence here at the
Right.
board. So
Thank
I'd
you.
ask the chairman to excuse me from the
You are
meeting call.
excused. You're excused.
Thank you.
You bet. Drive safely.
What was the second? I missed the second.
Second was Louis.
And who was the first thing?
Everett made that.
Everett made the, okay. At this time, I would like to request a motion to approach, to recommend Robert as a voting member for the rest of the evening. Do we have a motion? Patrick, thank you for your motion. Louis?
Second.
Thank you all. Those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, so moved. Okay, Mr. Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a conditional rezoning request. It's Conditional District 2019-008, known as Crestwind. Conditional zonings are a request to amend the official zoning map of Union County. In this specific case, the applicant has requested to rezone 2 parcels of land from RA 40 to R4 conditional. This applicant requests that rezoning in order to develop a single-family neighborhood with a maximum of 615 age-restricted homes. The project also consists of common open space for use by the residents. The project's access will come from 2 points of entry and exit off of Potter Road. The roads inside the project will be privately maintained, and the development is proposed to be gated. Project will meet setbacks. These are the individual lot setbacks for the houses, 20 feet in the front, 25 feet in the rear, and 5 feet, on the side. The overall density, gross density of the project is 2.1 dwelling units per acre. I did have a couple of questions regarding density when you remove floodplain area. So I calculated that 2 ways, and these are rough calculations. These are using GIS, so this is not survey grade. I'm not a surveyor. I'm going to preface that. But if you were to use the county's cluster standard, which is a standard we have for subdivisions in Union County that lower their lot sizes but still meet the same overall density as the zoning district that they're in, that allows you to use up to 50% of the floodplain. If you do that, you come out to roughly 2.3. If you remove all the floodplain, you come out to roughly about 2.5. So just, I had a couple questions about that, so I wanted to make sure I addressed it. Since this is a conditional rezoning request, the district, if approved, would be bound by all the conceptual plans and conditions that were approved as part of the process. These are some photographs of the development site and the immediate vicinity around the development site. The top left is looking into the site from Potter Road. So it's mainly this is a shot of a big open field. These trees are also part of the property. The property is pretty large. I didn't get the whole thing, but you have some more open field and trees off to the right and to the left. The one on the top right is taken from the property looking directly across the street. So this is just one part of the property. This is a large development. So this photograph was taken, I'm standing about right where that cursor, right where I'm circling. So directly across the street, that is the Winding Creek neighborhood. So that's an existing subdivision on Potter Road. The photograph on the bottom left is looking north along Potter Road, so that kind of gives you an idea of what Potter Road looks like. As you can see, there's some property information there, pretty rural development. This is part of the subdivision. These are some single lots that front on Potter Road. And this is looking, again, I think I said this, north along Potter Road as you head toward intersection with Willoughby and Highway 84. This photograph is looking south along Potter Road, so this would be heading toward the intersection with Newtown. So this is located in the unincorporated portion of Union County. All this white is Union County. Wesley Chapel does lie, primary Wesley Chapel boundaries lie sort of to the north and to the west of this property. There is a satellite annexation of some of the lots in Winding Creek that was done, and they're also in the town of Wesley Chapel. These properties, of course, right now they're vacant. There's also some rural development in the area, some rather large lots with single-family homes on them, and then you have some sporadic subdivision development around in the area. Everything currently is zoned RA 40. This is kind of aggregated, so this is a combination, it's really not RA40. Everything is a 40,000 square foot minimum lot size. You have a mix of R40, RA40, and then Wesley Chapel has a zoning district called Residential Union County, which were, I'm assuming that's probably this Winding Creek neighborhood. They annexed it, applied that zoning to it since it started in Union County. But primarily everything out there is zoned R40 or RA40. Surrounding land uses are primarily low to medium density residential, and then you've got a good bit of agricultural property in the area as well. Most of the properties in this area, it's kind of a mix as to what they're served by. Some of the more developed properties, such as where your subdivisions are, most of those are served by Union County Water and Sewer. A lot of the more rural properties are served by well and septic or some combination of septic systems and water. This project is proposed to be served by Union County Water and Sewer. Water currently, as we understand from Union County Public Works, is located along Potter Road, and sewer is available to the property in two places. These are two streams. This is East Fork 12 Mile Creek. This is Molly Branch, and there are sewer lines along both of those stretches of stream. These parcels have been zoned RA40 since Union County established zoning in 1978. There have been no rezoning requests or special use permits associated with these properties. I'll get to that in just a second. We do send these off to Union County Public Schools for review and comment, and I want to read you their comments verbatim. This development along Potter and Weddington Road will be within the Weddington High School cluster for the 2019-2020 school year. The elementary school that would service this area is Wesley Chapel. They're projected to be at 86% of capacity this month. Weddington Middle School is projected to be at 99% of capacity this month, and Weddington High School is projected to be at 86% of capacity this month. Union County Public Schools stated that they have two primary concerns related to this development. Although they state this development is proposed to be age restricted, it is our experience that it will still likely contribute to enrollments. Per Board of Education policy, Weddington Middle School is no longer accepting transfers from other schools due to its high enrollment. There are numerous other planned developments within the attendance areas listed above, which will also contribute to additional enrollment pressure. Additional residential construction contributes to problems such as mobile classrooms, inadequate capacity for food service and restroom facilities, rationing of access to the media center, insufficient parking and queuing space for parents to safely deliver or pick up their children, inadequate planning and meeting space for additional staff. The second concern that the schools have with the proposal is the intersection of Weddington Road and Potter Road, which I will back up a little bit. So Weddington Road and Potter Road is a little bit off this map, but that's the intersection. Wesley Chapel Elementary School is on the southwest corner of that intersection, so that gives you a good point of reference. There's been considerable discussion among various agencies about much needed improvements here, and the question would be whether the proposed improvements are sufficient to handle an additional 615 residential units only 1.5 miles from the intersection. Traffic around Wesley Chapel Elementary School is already problematic, and there are several large planned subdivisions in the vicinity which will add to the congestion. These subdivisions include Cavison, the Ridge at Wesley Chapel, and Addington Crossing. Those are the school's comments.
Have these been approved?
I'm sorry?
Have these developments been approved?
I believe they have. Cavison, the Ridge at Wesley Chapel, and Addington Crossing are not in the county's jurisdiction. I believe those are all in the village of Wesley Chapel. And I missed one because it wasn't on a separate line. I'm sorry, I jumped over that. Creeks Landing is another one that they pointed out. That is in the county's jurisdiction. So I believe three of those are in Wesley Chapel and one of those is in the county. And yes, to my understanding, they've all been approved.
All approved.
Yes. There are a few important environmental features to point out on the map. Of course, I've mentioned before that this is East Fork of 12 Mile Creek, and you have Molly Branch that both converge just below this site. And those both have, we're showing the 500-year floodplain. So they both have special flood hazard area or floodplain located on them. You also have a couple of jurisdictional streams on the property and some identified wetlands. From a transportation standpoint, we do have one traffic count, not at the development site, but just to the south, and it shows approximately 3,600 vehicle trips per day. The comprehensive transportation plan shows Potter Road to be in the future to stay a 2-lane with paved shoulders. The CTP shows that a few improvements will be made north of the site in 2020. So NCDOT is doing a couple of improvements. One, they're adding turn lanes at 84 and Potter, and they are also building a roundabout at Potter and Wesley Chapel Stouts.
Lee, why did we not request or do we have the right to request a traffic count where this is actually going in?
These are DOT traffic counts. We do not have traffic counts from DOT for anything. They usually do their traffic counts on about a 2-year cycle, so there should be some new ones coming out pretty soon, but we don't have them yet.
Okay, thank you.
I do, before I go into the planning documents, I do want to, the applicant did hold a community meeting. That was on July 7th, and I'm not going to go into every single detail because I think a lot of the folks that are here will probably touch on those, but some of the highlights of the meeting, of course, transportation was a big concern from the residents. There was a specific concern about site distance issues heading south on Potter Road just after you pass Willoughby. We have reached out to DOT just to talk about that. I haven't heard back from them yet. There were some concerns about flooding and stormwater issues, especially along those creeks. And then there was just a general concern about the density on the project and wanting to keep everything as R40. Those are the primary things. There were some secondary concerns such as, you know, if it's approved and they start, you know, there's blasting that occurs, how is that going to be regulated? You know, is water and sewer infrastructure available, and can it handle the capacity that this will generate? Environmental assessments. So there were a few other secondary issues that came up. So I apologize if I've missed any, but I think those were the primary concerns. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about in terms of transportation was this. We didn't get this in time to put it in your agenda packets, but as part of the TIA, since this is over 100 lots, the developer is required to do a TIA. And as part of this TIA, they have to look at up and downstream of this site, look at how these intersections are functioning now, how they'll function if the development was approved. 84 and Potter is currently functioning at a level of service E, which is bad. That's before the development. So our ordinance, you're not required, if your development causes it to fall below a certain level, then you have to mitigate up. In this case, really can't fall below that level. So, but you have to demonstrate, based on our ordinance, improvements that could happen to bring it up to a level D. They're not, our ordinance doesn't require it, but I wanted the board to have this just for discussion. Yeah. So basically what that document is it shows a couple of different improvements that could be made to that intersection to bring it up to a level of service D, and there's cost estimates associated with those improvements. As far as planning documents go, this property lies inside the single-family residential category of the Union County Comprehensive Plan. The single-family category of the plan anticipates single-family neighborhood development. This plan anticipates that, on average, the density inside the single-family residential category will be approximately 1 unit per acre. The densities in these areas should be lower than 1 unit per acre on and near the border with the agricultural area, and higher than 1 unit per acre on and near the border with the mixed residential category. Based on staff analysis, since the yellow is the single family and the orange is the mixed residential, based on our planning staff looking at this rezoning, the density proposed between 2.1 and 2.4 appears consistent with the plan. Since the development is close to the border of the mixed residential category, slightly higher density should be anticipated. We have had significant conversations with the developer, and I'll say most of our concerns have been addressed at this point. We still have some outstanding issues with to work out with DOT. I'll take any questions the board has.
Lee, I
Yeah, I
guess
might have
one
missed it.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I might have missed it. What, are there gonna be any turn lanes or deceleration lanes into this complex?
Yes, so this is a fairly large development, so DOT is requiring turn lanes into this development.
Okay. And the other question I have is, there's, it might have been just a typo, but, we have conflicting, descriptions in here, either age
Uh-oh.
restricted or age targeted, so.
Yes, so, yes, and it is being proposed as an age-restricted development. I think the issue that was in conflict was this, and I meant to point that out. I'm
It was
glad
in-
you,
it
I'm
was
glad
with
you
the
caught it. I
schools.
meant to bring that up. They were the school's comments. I copied these verbatim from the school system. I don't want, this is their document. I don't want to change anything. They did call it an age-targeted development. However, it is age-restricted.
Okay.
Yes, I appreciate you pointing that out, because I meant to point that out when I was doing my staff presentation.
Just for clarification, that means that no children are in that subdivision?
So what age restricted means, from a county standpoint, is that 80% of the people, at least one person in each home, and 80% of those homes has to be at least 55 years old. That's what that means.
Okay.
Now, you know, if a developer wants to restrict it above and beyond that, I imagine that's something that they could put in their restrictive covenants, but it's not something that we can enforce. We can only enforce the 80-20 rule.
What is the sewer and water capacity?
From talking with Public Works, in this area, the sewer and water are adequate to serve the development. You
Did,
got a question?
did the school take into account what the actual proposed account or ratio of students that would come out of this development?
No, I think when the school looks at these, they don't actually do an analysis on how many children the neighborhood will produce. They just, in general, look at the development in the area and give kind of a reaction to how they feel that will impact the school system.
Lee, you made a comment down here under staff comments that staff has had significant conversations with the developer,
Yes.
and our concerns have been addressed. Can you kind of highlight the concerns that you had that were addressed?
Sure. Most of those had to do with, a lot of them are on the transportation end. Unfortunately, Bjorn's not here, but they performed the TIA. Bjorn was in agreement, and DOT were in agreement. with the results of the TIA. They have agreed to mitigate stormwater at the 2 and 25-year storm events, which is the same as what we do for our cluster standard. It's the same stormwater level that is mitigated to for any rezoning that's approved by the Board of Commissioners. So those were the two primary issues that came up.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Are there more questions for Lee?
Yes, Lee, on this age restricted, with the 80% of the households must have one person over 55 years old. So 20% of the places require nothing at all. Anybody can come live in there.
Based on the standard that is adopted in the federal regulations and one that's mirrored under North Carolina general statutes.
Okay,
Yes.
and if the, like all HOAs, when they put their covenants in it, their covenants, do we have a copy of their covenants? Or they go into the federal statutes, or are they saying, you gotta have 55-year-old guy in every house here, or whatever?
My understanding is that the developer, and this would have to be in their covenants, because again, we can't enforce anything higher than that minimum. My understanding is that the developer is intending to restrict this to 100%, but you would probably want to hold that question for the development team.
Okay, I'll hold it then, thank you.
Any other questions for Lee?
Has anybody ever done a study on how many new houses are going in this area? Seems like
I don't have the number, but
It seems like every month we
it-
just keep getting more and more and more
Yes.
houses going in.
I don't have a number. I could get that number for you relatively easily, because we don't have all the development data for new subdivisions, because some of the towns don't give us their information. But for the most part, especially in this area, we do have building permit data.
I would recommend that we get that.
Sure, we can
And
do
have
that.
that go to the commissioners,
Okay.
whichever way this
All right,
goes.
yeah, we can do that.
Any other questions for Lee?
So if I recall though, and correct me if I'm wrong, the sewer and water capacity as it stands now is capable.
Right.
However, we talked about this last time, the rights to it are not sealed until there's a CO, correct? With the property?
Close.
With the housing,
That's close. So the rights on the sewer are sealed at final plat.
at final plat,
Right.
that's right.
Right, so basically when, at this point, you know, we talk to Public Works and we say, listen, we've got this rezoning request, how does sewer look right now? And Public Works says, right now, it's good. And then there's a sketch plan drawing, if the rezoning's approved, there's a sketch plan drawing that comes in. It goes to them again, and they say, at this point in time, the sketch plan looks good. Then there's a set of construction documents, or in the planning world, we call it preliminary plans. That comes in, at that point, it goes to them again, and they say, yep, it looks good. And then, it used to be that a preliminary plat is when, that's when the whole big thing is reviewed. It used to be the county's policy that that's when the capacity fees were collected. But the legislature changed that, I think last year, or maybe year before, and they moved it back. So you can't collect capacity fees until final plat. So what they do, they take that big preliminary plat, and then they're gonna break it up into several phases. And those phases are what that final plat is. So at that final plat, we review it, everybody says, yep, this looks like the preliminary plan, and at that point, the developer pays those capacity fees and reserves that capacity for those lots in that final plat.
So basically, it's a race against some of these other developments that might have had a head start,
It
so to speak,
potentially could be, yeah,
depending who gets to the courthouse faster.
right. Our understanding is, again, this is our understanding from Public Works, is that this area, there's plenty of capacity in the 12 Mile Creek plant, and this area has the infrastructure to support this. You do have some areas where, even though the plant's fine, the infrastructure's not. Poplin Road is a good example. That was the one we heard last month. The the pump station at the Poplin Road area, if you could get the sewage out of the pump station, you would be fine. The problem is you can't, the pump station's full. Or it's not full yet, it's close.
Any other
Yes.
questions for Lee?
Lee, let me go back to the age-restricted deal. Since we don't have a consulting attorney here for the board, check on your knowledge of the law. We talk about what, I think, 80% requirement by federal law. However, if the developer says, I think we're gonna go to 92%, and we're gonna put it in the covenants, okay? How are those covenants nailed to that piece of property, and what would it take for someone to overturn them, which would change what we
Right.
thought about?
So
How would
those-
it be done?
Yeah, so those covenants would be part of the neighborhood. So it would be up to the homeowners association or property owners association, whatever you want to call it, to enforce those covenants. As far as changing the covenants, you know, I have lived, I don't live in a neighborhood anymore, but I have lived in a neighborhood, and covenants can be changed if you have a certain number of votes. And that's based on however the covenants are written. We don't get involved in the activities that go on in HOAs. Those are private restrictions, and those aren't public policy. However, this would have a condition that met the minimum of 80-20, so they could not go below that.
Okay, well, let me ask you, I know that. Let me ask you this. If the developer says, yeah, we're gonna make it 93%, and would this board have the ability to okay it as long as it stayed at that 93% or whatever it's gonna be? Do we have that
I'm gonna
strength?
preface this by saying this is my non-legal, I'm not an attorney, lawyer opinion, but I don't think you could.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Lee, what happens if the applicant says it's absolutely 100%? So,
If they restricted 100%,
Right.
then that is on, we're gonna hold it to 80-20, and anything above and beyond that is up to the HOA to enforce.
okay, thank you. Any other questions for Lee? Lee, thank you.
And I believe the developer is here, and I think they probably have a
Okay.
presentation.
Good. Would the applicant like to come forward, state your name and your address and who you represent?
Good evening. I'm
Evening.
Mike McClendon. I live at 804 Sardis Lane in Charlotte. I represent Coulter. We do, and these other gentlemen are going to get into the particulars of the development, but we do active adult throughout Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas. To hit the question of age restricted, we deed restricted and covenant restricted. So there are no children. And the beauty of it is the customers that buy, we've got one here in Charlotte, at Mint Hill, they don't even want the grandkids at the pool. So the HOA cannot overturn that document. Now, I believe there's a federal guideline that says I have to have the 80-20 rule. But that's 20% can be under 55. But with those covenants, we're not going to impact the schools at all. There's not going to be any children. If, let's just say it's unfortunate that somebody got custody of their child, they have to move. And so it's legal, it's deed restricted and by covenants, and the HOA cannot take that out. So I want to make that clear.
Good.
And, so
Thank you,
these
sir.
other gentlemen will get into it. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Matt Kiker. I'm with Thomas and Hunt Engineering. We've been providing civil services through the rezoning process. So I'm here to take questions if you have them on the rezoning plan. Sound like Lee touched on most of them, but you know.
Single-family homes, what kind of square footage are you looking at?
Anywhere, they start at 1,500 and they go all the way up to like 3,000 square feet. All ranches.
No townhomes, no
sir.
anything? Everything
Single
one
family,
story?
single family detached, no multifamily.
What about price?
Um,
Have you set that yet?
We have not, but it's gonna be,
That's fair. Okay.
it's not, they're not gonna be $200,000. It's gonna be what you would expect in that market, in that segment of Union County. We think it's gonna be fairly significant.
I did understand correctly, it's single story, correct?
Yes, sir. There are some options to put a bonus room over the, not over the garage, but it's over the main frame of the house. And about 50% of the customers take that.
Okay.
And they do it for either when the grandkids visit, or it's his man cave, or it's a storage.
I'm one of the old people, I know about those things.
And your approximate houses per acre is 2 point,
Yeah, as Lee stated earlier, it was calculated without, I know he got into semantics on the floodplain without, with it being included or not included, but you're at 2.1 right now, units per acre.
Have you done anything with, in regards to transportation?
Yeah, we have our TIA consultant, Ramey Kemp, here as well, so he can speak to that.
Okay. Your name and address, please?
Drew Ritter. I live at 1114 Clement Avenue, apartment 309, Charlotte, North Carolina 28205.
So what have y'all doing pertaining to transportation?
We performed the TIA. We did traffic counts. I know the main intersection of probably, as he said, there are some existing conditions out there that we did traffic counts at NC 84 and Potter. We studied intersection north and south of the site, and that was, we've had the site study area was approved by NCDOT and Bjorn. And we have had, there were some, as he mentioned, there were turn lanes at each driveway. That was a request by DOT. In regard to the off-site improvements, we're working on a payment in lieu with NCDOT right now.
What do you mean in payment?
They're working on amount. There were some impacts at the intersection of NC 84 and Potter. And the developers agreed to essentially cut a check for whatever that amount is not determined yet for whatever improvements that were determined by the TA to be made. The payment for that dollar amount that will address the mitigations from the traffic generated by the site for intersection improvements at that intersection.
Have y'all been made aware of that?
Yes.
could you make a conjecture on, if this was a 691 home with families, the traffic trips in and out versus an age-restricted development like this?
You're saying like the development, the number of trips that would generate versus what this generated?
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to say. And what I'm trying to draw a comparison is, if there was a housing development put there that was 691 homes of families that had kids that were of school age and driving age versus age-restricted age,
Gotcha.
which I would assume you're probably looking at 2 persons per household.
I mean, we used, right, it would be a little, I don't have the code, I mean, we use land use code 251, which is senior adult housing detached. It generated, so we did this study, I mean, this has been going on for 6 months. At the time, we had 675 dwelling units. Now it's 615. I think it was y'all were reworking the site plan at that point, I believe.
Yeah, we
And-
had originally shown, not to the county, before we got into rezoning, there were discussions about how much yield you could get out of the site. The numbers were being pushed around 675. Since then, it has been brought down to 615.
Okay.
So that is worth mentioning that the TIA has 675. So it would, and even with that 675, it was just over 3,000 daily trips, that's the threshold that NCDOT will require TA for a development. But as far as answer your question, generally for like single family attached housing, you'd use land use code 210. As far as the difference, I don't have that. I mean, somewhere I don't have the rates right in front of me. I mean, I could get that for you if you'd like. I don't have as far as the difference in what that would generate with 691 versus this one, I don't have that.
Well, I'm just saying 600 homes of age restricted versus 600 homes of people that's unrestricted, how many people live there? That's what I'm asking. What does an ordinary development household, do you think, generate
2 or 3 trips
per day?
per day.
I'm just curious. That's
Okay.
all. Because I wouldn't think that, I'm over 55, and I know this guy over here's over 55, and I wouldn't think we would go as many times as people who are family or.
Right. I mean, and that's why, ITE has all these different land use codes for specific sites, like this, and they have, we use the trip journey manual, and that was really, I guess, the key was in there, like, before forming the TIA, that's the main thing of the TIA is what land use code makes sense to figure out how many trips it's gonna generate based on the size.
And I'm certainly not trying to put. you-
No, I know,
I just.
No,
I was just looking for a ratio or a percentage.
And the thing is, we use the 10th edition. The rates are constantly changing. They're constantly, they're based on, from state, sample sites all over the country. So yeah, they're always changing. But generally, around the states, around the same.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I have a question. As you look at the map that we were shown that looks like this,
Right.
have y'all worked with fire department, the police department on access and egress? Do they have enough space to go down the street, turn around, do what they need to do, ambulances, et cetera, so forth and so on?
We actually have already submitted a sketch plan for this site, and fire has commented on that. And the particular comment that they made was just the width of the roads. So they were concerned about it being less than 20 feet wide. And right now we're showing the smallest road being 24 feet wide, pavement. So it's a gated entrance. They wanted to make sure they had enough room for a fire vehicle to be able to maneuver around without having to go through the gated if they needed to turn around. So that's comment and I think that may have been it. Otherwise, cul-de-sacs that are shown are large enough for fire trucks to maneuver around. So, but they have seen the plan and they have commented on it through the sketch plan process. So,
Lee, have you seen any of those comments?
Yes.
You satisfied with them? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any other comments for the applicant?
All of these dwellings front load,
Yes.
how much room have they got between the street and the front of the building?
yes, whatever the setback is, that's where we normally set the front of the building at. So, right now I believe you're
25,
sitting,
20,
I'm sorry, 20 foot.
feet? Okay.
Yeah, 20-foot front setback. So,
May I?
Yes.
I have question, comment, whatever. we're sitting here, and certainly a major concern is gonna be the traffic impact. I mean, I've been living in Union County for 20-some odd years now, and it's grown up and congested quite badly. On an age-restricted operation, and you thought, well, you made 3 trips for average people. However, if you did a study and could give us some legitimate information, retired people don't generally go out at rush hour morning, rush hour evening, because there's too much traffic. They don't do that. And if we had some real legitimate answers as the way things work, we could make a better decision on road impact, and certainly would put you in a better position to sell it as well. So may I recommend you look into that, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Louis, that's a good comment.
Thank you.
That's a good comment.
Thank
I would think if we knew what your Mint Hill operation was doing with that, that'd really help us, not only with tonight, but going forward. We'd have some proof and examples of what it is. So, any other comments for the
This
applicant?
is a cluster development. Are they gonna be like mailboxes in certain areas? The font on this is so small, I
Yeah,
can't see it.
that's worked out with USPS on where they want they've got requirements now. You can't just stick mailboxes wherever. You have to actually have, like a mail kiosk. So we'll work with USPS and, position those where they see fit.
The goal would be to have one mailbox at the amenity site.
Yeah.
We've got that at Mint Hill, because typically everybody's going to the amenity, and it's just one big location that's covered. The post office loves that, because you can just come in and stay there and not have to drive around the neighborhood.
How-
That's typically what they.
How big is your
request.
Mint Hill site?
772.
772. And we're about a third of the way through it.
That Mint Hill site is off of 2427 or Almar Road, correct?
Yes, sir. Right where the new hospital is?
Yes.
At 45, exit 41, yes, sir.
It's a road that has a lot more capacity to it.
I got a question for Lee.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how many houses are across the street at Winding Creek?
Not off the top of my head, no, sir.
Is it a big development or?
It's not, no, it's a small development.
Small?
It's a really small development.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's a small development, Winding Creek.
May I answer that question? As the president of that HOA, there are 67 homes.
67?
67.
Thank you.
And you said you're the president of the HOA?
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Your name?
Dr. Sanford Burke, I'm going to speak to you.
Okay, good. We'll get that. Thank you very much. We just want that for the record. Any other questions for the applicant? Yes.
I will say one thing, Chris always talks about impact fees, and he brings that up. They're putting road in, which is gonna improve at their expense, and hopefully help the school and help everything in that area. And whether, so, it went through their, I don't know how much, and they don't know at this point what the state's gonna require, but that is a big deal. That is an impact fee.
Russell, and this is the first one we've had, and
First one I know of.
I was thinking the same thing. So, be commended. Thank you.
So that's for a developer to take up, and, I know you folks in the crowd have your opinions, but that is a big deal. I've sat around for a long time and heard both sides of the impact fee thing. And, when a developer will step up and do an impact, and I know it's required, but it's still, they could pull back and said no, so.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Gentlemen, thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it. Okay. I would like speakers that signed up to speak tonight, whether it's for or against, to come up as I call your name. To my right, our board member, Mr. Harrison, is going to time this. We're going to give you 3 minutes. I would also like to ask, and you have to understand that there's a reason for asking, because we've had 1 or 2 of these get out of hand. but I ask that we have some civil conversation, no yelling, no screaming. If you need to ask a question and you're not on this list, at the end I'll ask if there's any more. You'll raise your hand, I'll call on you to come up. You'll give your name and your address and the town or zip code you live in. So if we're all in agreement with that, I'd like to start with Sammy Cohen. Did I pronounce that right? Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Hi. I'm the owner and operator of Newtown Farms.
Your name and address.
Sammy Koenigsberg, 4610 Newtown Road.
Okay.
I'm the owner and operator of Newtown Farms, which is a 50-acre organic farm on Newtown Road. The proposed rezoning borders the entire back half of our farm. I speak tonight out of a deep love for the land. I grew up on this land. I raised my 8 children on this land, and I've spent the last 30 years as a husbandman to it, caring for it, working with it, drawing our sustenance from it as we fought to make a small, sustainable farm economically viable and prepare the next generation to continue the work and maintain the farm in our community. We work to produce healthy food for our community in a way that enriches and improves the land. My early background was in architecture and the study of the built environment. This rezoning plan gives little or no thought to and would significantly, negatively, and permanently alter the environment, the community, and the neighboring lands. I believe it's a complete failure of stewardship of land, which is our divine directive. This is not a plan of someone trying to make a living, but the plan of someone trying to make a killing. And the casualties will be the land, the character of the community, and perhaps our farm. All this perpetrated by interests from outside of our community, whom the author Wendell Berry so aptly refers to as the stranger with money. This plan is an insult to the creation and a gross failure of imagination for our community. I ask that you recommend its categorical denial. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comment. Dr. Sandra Burke.
Good evening, gentlemen. I am Dr. Sandra Burke. I live at 3900 Voltaire Drive in Monroe, North Carolina, 28110. I live in the Winding Creek neighborhood, as I mentioned earlier, across the road from the proposed development. I'm here to speak vehemently against the proposal for rezoning these nearly 300 acres where, as you know, more than 600 homes will be built. Now, there are many reasons for my concerns and for those from surrounding neighborhoods to whom I've spoken about the building of such a large, dense community, which by the developer's own statements will result in houses which are located about 10 feet apart. Not the least of these concerns is the issue of safety. Safety of all the residents of this and surrounding neighborhoods. Potter Road is a narrow, 2-lane roadway, I should say, with a blind rise or hill located on a curve, no less, very near one of the exits to this proposed neighborhood. You did not hear that earlier. And there are other issues of tremendous concern as well, including one of the most important, quality of life. Many residents are very concerned about quality of life issues. Many have moved to this area with the hope of leaving city neighborhoods to live in quiet, peaceful surroundings. The construction of such a large development will be a slippery slope to leaving all of that behind. Continued massive development in this area is completely unwarranted until certain issues are addressed. Among those are the terrible roads in the region, as detailed in a recent letter to the editor published in the Union County Weekly last February. It details the issue perfectly. Among points made in this letter, written by one of our neighbors as a matter of fact, are the fact that, and I quote, "As the road infrastructure continues to implode, The building permits from our towns, villages, and counties' unincorporated areas have not slowed down. Irresponsible development or rubber stamp decisions put additional stress on the road system, along with unintended consequences regarding the flooding issue, end quote. Time won't allow me, obviously, to expand on the latter point, but it's a serious one. I belong to a group called R for RG, Residents for Responsible Growth. The operative word there is responsible. Growth is inevitable, but it must be responsible growth. This proposal is irresponsible, and a number of residents are totally against it, as evidenced by attendance of more than 80 neighbors who gathered to express their concerns at Oak Grove Baptist Church on July 16th. I strongly urge this board to take heed and to limit future development in our area until the infrastructure is improved. Please
Time's
reject
up.
the petitioner's request for rezoning at this time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Appreciate it very, very much. Mr. Paul Barrett.
Hello, my name is Paul Barrett. I live at 1032 Torrance Drive in Adelaide Estates. I'm just down the road from where this development's going in. I'm very happy to see the questions that have been asked, especially by Mr. McNally. I would like to see, though, more definitive numbers that comes out of the sewer and water program systems. Saying adequate to me might not be adequate to you. That would be my biggest concern, because we see fluctuations in our water pressure in our subdivision that a lot of people feel due to the water supply needs for that particular area. I'm new to the area. I've only been here about 2 years. I can understand the growth and the want of growth, but obviously the roads are an issue. It would sure be nice to see a little more effort made towards trying to improve the roads and the intersections. This particular subdivision is bounded by 2 of the intersections that was discussed by Mr. Black. That should really be taken into consideration. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bob Brown?
I'll defer.
You're passing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Till later. I'll defer. Is that okay?
Next is Chris Helms.
I'm Chris Helms, live at 4118 Newtown Road, Waxhaw, 28173. And not any disrespect to my neighbors, because I probably agree with a lot of the things that they said. The only thing is, my family's been here for over 100 years, grandparents, great-grandparents. We've seen a lot of growth in this county. And, you know, it's not popular, and change is tough. But when I see something like this, as much as I'm really not pro-change, if they could restrict this to 100%, it's at 55 and above, it's not going to impact the schools. It's going to be a gated community. It's going to be a lot of tax dollars. It could do a lot for the county. Change is coming. The heirs to this property are going to sell this property. It's going to be developed. It seems like these guys have done their homework. Seems like they've got everything where it needs to be lined up, and it sounds like they're willing to do what it takes to do it right. We've got a lot of neighborhoods around there that have recently popped up, but if this is a gated community, I do believe that it'll probably be one of the nicest communities within a probably 3, 4, 5 mile radius. Just an opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Mr. Lance Broche. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Close enough. I'll answer about anything. Lance Broche, 826 South Potter Road, Monroe, 28110. I've lived where I currently have my house built for 40 years. My mother lives across from me. So we've got a vested interest. Yes, it's strictly personal, and it's selfish, but no way is it as selfish as the request that's being asked of you. The impact that this development's going to have on the community, it's going to be terrible. It's going to overload our roads. I hear a lot of vague references for sewer and water supply, because when I was at the meeting at Oak Grove, the answers were not as clear. And no disrespect towards you, Lee, I spoke with you personally there, but I hear just a lot of vague references like okay, things like that, and it does not inspire confidence in me. All of the people along the road back of it have already complained that they have low water pressure. I'm on a well, it's not going to affect me any. One of the key things that stood out is as they were presenting numbers, it said 2.1 homes per acre. Now that's based on the 199 acres. If you take roads and common areas out of that quickly gets to 3 houses per acre, and that's an approximate value. If you've ever been in that area, just as this fellow right here spoke, and nicely done, those are nice homes out there. Those people did not move to those homes so that their neighbors could be packed 3 to an acre. The same as me and the same as my family that has lived there for 40 years. You are going to ruin Wesley Chapel if you give them access to put that kind of a concentration of homes in that area. I've lived here for 40 years because my property backs up to that and how beautiful it is. I don't want to lose it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My request is that you do not consider this in any way. If there were homes being built back there similar to the ones that are across the street, they're nice homes, they're on large lots, I wouldn't even bat an eye. This is going to destroy the property values of everybody within, I'll say 2 or 3 miles of it, easily. It's going to ruin their property values, and that's not why they're moved there. That and the fact that there's another retirement community that's already being built up next to Wesley Chapel, between Wesley Chapel and the community up there. Why do we even need this? Why are we even considering it? Thank you.
Mr. Frank Capella?
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Frank Capella. I live at 3901 Voltaire Drive in Winding Creek. I attended the community meeting. For what it's worth, not one member of our community, over 60 that signed in on a Tuesday in July, spoke out in favor of this project, and I'd like to lay out some of the reasons why. First, Potter Road is a very tiny but very busy 2-lane country highway. It has no shoulders, poor grading, systemic flooding issues, drainage issues, terrible lines of sight, and many other safety hazards. This road is literally falling apart in some sections. There is a very dangerous blind turn right near the proposed development's entrance. As one of our neighbors pointed out at the community meeting, this is a site where a terrible accident recently took place, and I believe the driver was killed. Also, many intersections within this immediate area are rated poorly by DOT. Secondly, this area is in and around the 12 Mile Creek system. As recently as May 10th, the 12 Mile Creek had breached local bridges in our area and overflowed into streets. Third, and most pressing, there is absolutely no way these roads, like Potter, can handle one more additional vehicle. At Potter Road at 84 in the morning, volume backups are nearing a quarter of a mile. Evening backups at 84 and Potter Road are pushing 1 mile. Where are these more than 1,000 new vehicles going to go? You simply cannot roundabout or turn lane your way out of this type volume, especially on an extremely narrow 2-lane road. And people over 55 drive a lot. Our community, at the community meeting, the builder was asked multiple times on how, with all the issues in our area right now, how does this development help or add to our community? That question could not be answered. Further, is this type of high-density project true to the county master plan within this area? Please understand this development would more than double the size of our single-family homes on Potter Road between 84 and Newtown. More than double the size. So I ask openly of all of you, if Potter Road is failing right now, if car volume is at a breaking point right now, if we have downstream flooding issues right now, how does this development help us? Someone needs to answer that question. So far, no one has. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Christopher Rowe.
Hi, Christopher Rowe. I live at 4702 Newtown Road, Waxhaw 28173. I live adjacent to this property. I walk this land. In the fall and winter, I walk this land and Molly Branch almost every day. And so I see, and then my background for 30 years has been residential design build. I'm a master builder, so we do all the residential design work, and then we build with our hands what we've designed. So my love is the built environment and the open land, and so this design, it's really, I think, informative. If you look even at the maps they were presenting, and if you were somehow able to take the map that had a lot of green on it, and then take the map with all these houses crammed together and put the two together, they really, to me, they really say a lot about the character of this. It's not really a design, it's just it's an investment. And I think that the people here that are against this love Union County for a certain reason. I think all of you do too, and some of your names I recognize from this county that go a long way back. So I think it will just be another addition to nameless, characterless places that just fill up the county, and we just would become a neighbor, what is it, just a collection of this faceless, nameless places and subdivisions. And I think the map shows that the character is just, it's vacant. And I also say that I witnessed this creek flooding. I witnessed the bridge down the street on Newtown Road flooding. It's really a very serious matter. And in trying to go to work to my project in the morning, I sit at these huge backups like this man just talked about, and you don't need to be an expert. You know that there is a serious problem. It's real disorder. And then the last thing is, as a design professional, I think, why do we have to even invoke the name age restricted and whatnot? If it's really right, why can't just everybody live there? And why can't it just be the most beautiful place we've ever seen? And why can't all these things be like that? Why segregate the older people? Shouldn't we all be together? And hasn't it always been that way? And is this trend really healthy and bright? And have we really studied that? But at the very base of all of this, I see the creek, the flooding, and the roads. It's really, really bad. And I think there are going to be more people and accidents and whatnot because of all this. And I think it'll really take away from the county. So I really would urge you to really look at this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Matt Kiker.
That was just me signing in for us to.
Okay, I'm taking it off this list, okay? Thank you very much. Okay. That's everybody that has signed up. Did anybody come in that did not sign up? Yes, ma'am. Would you mind coming forward? Okay. Got a couple of questions I'd like to ask you, if you don't mind. Slowly give me your name.
My name is Maura McKinnon,
How do you spell your first name?
M-A-U-R-A, just like Laura. only with an
M-A-U-R-A, McKinney.
MacKinnon, M-A-C-K-I-N-N-O-N,
And your address?
809,
Pardon?
809
Okay.
Circle Trace Road,
And your phone number?
201-618-1772.
1772?
Correct.
And are you for or against?
Against.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Like I said, my name is Maura McKinnon, 809 Circle Trace Road. I live in Potter's Trace. It's a development up the road from this proposed growth. Let me just state, I'm not opposed to growth. I'm opposed to irresponsible growth. And I think this particular subdivision just has way too many homes for this community. When you talk about age restriction, I shouldn't be doing this, but I will in public. I'm an older mom. I'm 51 years old. I had my children older. I traveled in my 20s, and I went to Europe, and I did the things that I really wanted to do. My husband is 55. We have 2 sons, 9th and 10th grade. So they would affect the school system. So just because someone's 55, it doesn't mean that they don't have children going to these schools. One person could marry 30-year-olds, and they could have 3 or 4 kids going into the school system. So I just want to put that out there. My 79-year-old mother actually also lives in the area. She lives in Winding Creek. She takes about 5 to 6 trips per day, not the 2 to 3 that was imagined earlier. The accident that Mr. Capella had mentioned, I have to say, I was coming down Willoughby and I was making a ride onto Potter to go home, and I saw that accident with my own eyes, and I actually stopped and asked an officer if a Toyota RAV4 was one of the cars in that accident, because that's what my mom drove. And so it's really hard for me to see that accident. And the 2 proposed exits and entrances of this, that top one on the north side of this development is on an extremely dangerous bend. Anyone making a left onto Potter out of this development is in for, I don't even know what. I would be scared to drive on that road. Seniors, I think of my sons and teaching them to drive on these roads. I'm teaching my 2 boys how to drive. I commend the payment of the development. However, this will do nothing for the volume on Potter, and especially at 84 and Potter. The flooding was mentioned, the hurricanes. I don't know if any of you live in this area or drove through that area after the hurricanes back in the fall, but it was devastating. Too many unanswered questions tonight, and I think, honestly, this isn't so much about the schools, it's about the roads as well. I believe each of your consciences should tell you that this development is not what is best for this area. Don't vote for this because it doesn't affect you personally. Vote no for this because it affects others personally. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there somebody else over there? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think, a point of clarification, ma'am, I don't think, Ms. McKinnon, I don't think you can have school-aged children in the development.
That wasn't answered, it just said 55.
I think that I'm correct on that.
It's absolutely restricted, no children are in the development.
That's right.
Well, it's, like I said, it's more about the roads than it is the schools.
Okay.
The Potter Road cannot handle this.
I just wanted to make that clarification because we had already
I appreciate it.
had a conversation with the developers. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, could you give me your name slowly, please?
John Winchester, 1521 Potter Road South, Waxhaw.
Just a second. Can you repeat that address?
1521 Potter Road South,
How you spell that?
P-O-T-T-E-R,
Okay, P-O-T-T-E-R, Potter Road South.
Waxhaw.
Okay, and what's your phone number?
704-289-1964.
For or against?
4.
Okay, thank you.
I've lived there all my life, probably seen all these people come in these neighborhoods, or at least most of them. And you know, growth is here already. And I think the 55 and older homes at 100% will be good, because I've got property one day I would like to sell, and these girls are wanting to sell their property. And I think if they ought to be able to sell it. If you got property there and been there for several generations, you know, I should see where everybody else should come in here and tell you where you can sell your property and get what money you can get out of it, you know, and they shouldn't have a say-so, I wouldn't think. But I've lived there, I'll be 72 in November, and I was born there. And I think this might be one of the better developments to go in
Because when you get a development in with more vehicles, it's gonna put more vehicles on the road. Plus, with no kids involved in the development, there shouldn't be any impact on the schools. So that's the way I feel about it, and, cause development's coming, it's already there in my neighborhood, and there's nothing we can do about it, but complain about it, you know. So I think the 55 and older will be one of the better developments going in, cause there's someone that will go in that property, maybe not right now, but in a year or two, and, you know, it's liable to impact the roads more then than it does now, and the schools also. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Come on up. Your name, sir?
David Carlin, C-A-R-L-Y-N.
C-A-R?
L-Y-N.
First name David?
Yep.
Address, sir?
4904.
4904?
Trinity Trace Lane, Monroe, North Carolina, 28110.
And your phone number?
704-941-9351.
9351?
Yes, sir.
For or against?
Against.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
I'm not quite as eloquent as quite some of the other people, and I'm not saying that I'm against all development, but I was at the other meeting, and everybody makes it seem like if you're against this development, that something else is going to come in 2-3 years and it's going to be worse. But that doesn't mean that if something else comes in 2-3 years that it has to be another development that's 700 houses. It can be something that was zoned what you guys on this board and what the people before you and before that decided that it should have been. Why does it have to be 700 houses? Why can't it be 100 houses or 200 houses? Almost 700 houses is too much for this neighborhood. And I was at that meeting, and not only were they talking about this development, but they were handing out business cards to all the other area landowners. And they can deny it all they want, but I was there, and the other landowners were there. And that means that when they're done with this property, they're gonna develop every other property around that. Not only that, but on Newtown Road, there's 2 other properties up for development right now that can't handle it because they're trying to annex land from my development right now. I live in the estates at Wesley Oaks, and that belongs to the Glen and the Oaks, and they're trying to ask us, I don't know if it's your board, but part of Monroe, trying to annex land from us to try to fix the water system because there's no water pressure. So if they're trying to get land from us to try to fix the water issues for existing problems, they're trying to put almost 300 houses on those 2 tiny parcels of land. This property wants to go in, and then who knows what else is gonna go down. I mean, if they wanna put all these properties in, and you know, all it takes is one lawsuit. If there's a federal law that says that 55 and older is 80-20, I don't care what they put in those covenants. A federal law trumps whatever covenants they have, and if enough people in that community want to complain, better believe it's going to change. I'm sorry, but you know, I'm almost 41. I have a 1-year-old and I drive. You mean to tell me in 14 years I'm not going to drive anymore? There's a difference between 55 and 75. And you know what? My grandparents drove until they passed away, and they drove a lot. So I know my time is almost up, but one of the things that the gentleman from Developer said that made me very sad is he said, in the unfortunate event that somebody gets custody of a child, it makes me very sad that that is the complete disregard they show for family, and they call these single-family homes. There's no family in these homes. There's no concern for any of the families in this community, and I implore you not to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, Bob, did you want to say something? You deferred a while ago.
Yes, sir. My name's Bob Brown. My address is 1005 South Potter Road. My house is directly across from the proposed entrance. Everybody's right about the road. Everybody's right about the schools. It's bad. The development next to us next to me, which was started by Turnberry Homes, which is Winding Creek, started out this way. Something happened to Turnberry Homes. So this phase 2 got finished by someone else. There is a subdivision on Newtown Road that's gated, 5-acre mini ranch. Newtown Village, which is right next to it, was supposed to be the same way. Something happened to the developer with the mini ranches, the property got sold, and it got turned into Newtown Village instead of all the mini ranches that were supposed to be there. That's my concern, that this is getting zoned R4, which is the minimum, that this process is going to take many years to complete. Something can happen to the economy. They can decide not to finish this. And then what happens to all that property that's zoned R4? Someone else can come in and finish this and do whatever they want. Now, if this conditional zoning is only for Coulter Homes, then that's different. That eliminates my concern, but nobody can answer that question for me either. As far as I know, the only other subdivision with that density zoned R4 is St. John's Forest or something over by the airport. And if you go in there and look around, they're stacked up like cordwood. And that's not what you want across the street from me. I mean, I don't want it. And nobody else does either.
Okay.
So that's about all I've got. Thank you.
Mr.
Lady,
Brown, Mr. Brown, that gentleman right there can tell you if the covenant follows and this conditional rezoning, if it follows the land or the landowner.
It would follow the land. So it would not be just for Coulter Homes, it'd be for any future development.
Right. So it would always be R4.
It would be R4 conditional, yes, sir.
Okay. That's... Thank you.
This will be the last question that we'll take.
Yeah.
My name's Donald Grant.
Pardon?
Donald Grant. I live at 1001 South Potter Road, Monroe, 28110, directly across the street.
Your
And
phone number?
Do what?
Phone number.
Phone number 704-363-0777.
For or against?
Against. I want to clarify one thing that was said. I was at the Oak Grove meeting. I've heard two entrants. The Oak Grove meeting from them, one entrance. Shows two. The one at the lower end is going to be closed. It's just going to be open for construction use only. So they got one entrance. It's at the top of the hill, directly across from my driveway. I've lived there 21 years, and I can tell you right now, they've been 8 bad rains. 8. The last one was in 3 pieces. Motor setting out, transmission setting out, burned. Totally. Next question. I have, what my concern is, as soon as they finish the neighborhood, who's gonna stand behind 55 years and older with a kid? Who's gonna do it? Gonna be Union County? Not gonna be them. They done. It just won't nobody. We'll end up having kids in there. Next thing is, my driveway, I've moved my mailbox 3 times for Union County. One side of the hill, the mailbox on one side, the other side, they on the other side. So the hill is a problem. Union County knows it. And they want to put the main entrance right there at the bottom of the hill. The gentleman spoke a while ago. He spoke earlier, Newtown Road. Yes, at Wesley Chapel, there's gonna be a problem. Newtown Road also, he spoke it. I believe he said there was 30 at Newtown. Same way. I know other people mentioned it, but they're gonna go that way too. That's it. I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come on down.
Thank you, sir. Hard to see back here in the back.
There you go. Your
Mr.
name?
Chairman, my name is Kevin Presley. I live at 7125 Secret Shortcut Road, Indian Trail, or Henry Bridge, North Carolina, doing my town a disservice here. And I'm speaking for the project. And
Real quick, give me that address again.
I'm sorry, 7125 Secret Shortcut Road, Henry Bridge, North Carolina.
And your phone number?
704-400-5665.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but I do want to kind of clear up a couple of things tonight. This TIA study that's been done out there, I want folks to realize that we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars contribution to the intersection up there. And we understand that there is some problems that's already been identified on the critical analysis. And so we want to understand that what we're doing is we're prepared to pay and fix and contribute to that. And that number hasn't been set in stone yet, but we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, not 10, 15,000 thrown around. Because we know that what's going to be up there, and we want to be a good neighbor and try to contribute to that. We are also talking with, and Lee has stated that the DOT is, the plan that he's looked at has approved the conditions that's there, so we're in that mitigation stage type thing right now. So the conditions that we've heard about at roads, and we understand that there is conditions with that road, but we're prepared to do what we can to fix the roads and contribute to the intersection also, to not only help the problem that's already there now, but any kind of impact that we're going to have. I wish that a lot of you had an opportunity to take a look at this thing. This is not two houses crammed on some lots. This is a premier, probably one of the biggest draw for seniors and folks that wants this kind of living to Union County. I don't know of anything that's like this with the amenities. And the reason that folks don't drive, which I shouldn't use that, but the reason they don't drive as much because they stay on the property of what's offered there. There are coordinators that have coordination just about every time, every night with something going on within the community itself. So the folks want to go there, they want to stay, they want to enjoy, they are going to go out shopping, they are going to go out, and they're going to go to the grocery store and things like that. But I want you guys to know that also too that in this amenity, we're talking like a $7 million amenity package. With what's the least impact that we're looking at in Union County? I mean, you got gated community, there's no impact, or my tax dollars are not going to have to fix their roads. They're going to take care of their own roads. It's going to be privately maintained. You're looking at again, $7 million amenity package that's going to bring back, I think we've done the calculations, $500,000 a year just to Union County for that. You're looking at the no impact on schools, these covenants and restrictions. I know there's a little bit of talk here about well, we can enforce that. That is enforceable, and it's already been done. And so, guys, y'all can go and take and put your hands on exactly what's being offered instead of just hypothetical situation. This works. This covenants and restrictions, no matter how restricted it is, the folks know about this when they go inside the subdivision, they purchase here. They know they're not going to be able to have children there, and they know they got to meet a certain age restriction. And so they know that going on. But the thing about it is if you look on the other side, yes, sir.
Your time is up.
Is it? Okay, okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Lee, you gave us 3 emails. One is from Melissa Augustine, request a denial. One is from Aaron Garin, if I pronounced, I may have butchered that name, requesting a denial, and just Bonnie, that's all it says. Doesn't give her last name. And I'm going to put these up here and ask that these be entered as part of the record, okay? Along with everybody else that spoke tonight. Lee, is there any closing comments from you on this particular case?
No, sir.
None whatsoever? Okay. At this time, what I'd like to do is close this public comment portion of the agenda and refer to the board here to discuss anything that's on their mind, comments about this, et cetera, before we go any further towards a vote or whatever that we come up with. So the floor is open to this board for any comments from anyone. Does anybody have any comments on it?
I have some to start
Okay.
off with.
Everett?
Mr. Sandy Cohen, I do understand how you feel. And you being in 50 years of organic, being in 50 acres of organic farming and all. I farm. And how do you feel when the county puts a 3-foot water main with a 100-foot right-of-way through 2 of the most beautiful farms you own? And that's what the county did to me, or is doing to me. I don't have a right. I don't have a hearing. But I'm doing it for the greater good of the people. That's the way it's looked at. So I understand what you're saying. The things that I look at is, when we're trying to decide this, is by right, the people who own this property can go out, and I know there's floodplains on it, I have no idea what it is, but they could build 200 to 250 homes out there of any quality whatsoever. And there's not a thing that anybody in this room can say, you all or us. Am I correct, that Lee? Stoned off order. All they have to do is come forward with a plat and all. But by right, they can build as many homes out there as long as they stay out of the floodplain. So y'all gonna have 200 to 250 neighbors or houses. It's inevitable. It's gonna happen. All right, the other thing is, the infrastructure's in place. They can do it. They can tap on whoever would build the homes instead of building these older homes. And you talk about your homes and all. We have an intersection that had that was on Mr. Black's thing a while ago. It's very remote, Highway 205 and 218. We asked how many people has to get killed there before they finally put something up. I can name you 3, and that's in the last 2 years. And this is our community. The last one was an 89-year-old woman. So I understand how you feel about traffic. They're putting a roundabout there now. Matter of fact, they're putting 4 on Highway 218, and that's to slow people down going to the beach. But progress, as these gentlemen over here said, is inevitable. And when people come in, more people follow. Your grocery stores, your drug stores, then your eating establishments, and we can't stop it. It's just like, I know y'all are upset about this one, but what about Wesley Chapel that just approved, in my calculation, over 300 units to be built right there in Wesley Chapel? Where y'all was upset about that is this. And these people have a right, and they can build 250 some odd houses on this. Now the question is, what kind of neighbors do you want? And what kind of development do you want? Because I love you, and I understand it. I farm, own the farm around me, and they put a 78 house development right in front of me. And I understand perfectly. The only thing you can do is, let's pick what we want. Let's have some choice in the quality of what we're gonna have out there. Now, I may be wrong, fellow board members, I ask y'all to counter me on this, okay?
I'll say as a realtor, what they're presenting, either you guys don't want growth and don't want it around you. Nobody does. I've been in real estate since 1977. Every time we take a development in, there's always folks that don't want growth around them, always. But I can say, my mom and dad for 35 years.
Nobody said that. Nobody said anything about no growth.
My mom and dad lived for 35 years in Timber Pines in Spring Hill, Florida. 35. That's a beautiful development. It has stayed senior only, and a lot of the amenities, like they're saying, are inside. And there is people, they do go out to grocery. They do go out to do things, but they eat there, they have plays there, they do things. These kind of communities are beautiful, they're assets to the community. They're the heartbeat of Spring Hill. And, you know, to bring in upper middle income folks into a senior community will not hurt your development. And like he's saying, if you put 200 and some homes in there, and it can be done right now, you guys have no say-so, none. They can come in there and start building tomorrow on 1 acre tracts and have water and sewer and build high-end homes.
We'll take that.
So,
Deal. Deal. Yeah, that's a deal. Yeah.
That density is outrageous.
That's the issue.
240 is
The
not
density is the
615.
Robert, do you have any comments?
I do. I have concerns about the project. In density, in the floodplains, in the sewer capacity. And I've been on that road myself, and it is narrow. It doesn't have the capacity like Elmore Road does. So those are my concerns.
Charlie? Any thoughts?
Those people deserve to sell their property. And they deserve to get a just amount for their property. I don't like the density. I would hope that there would be some compromise. But in order to control the property around you, you need to own it.
Okay, thank you. Patrick?
I'm with Charles. I think the infrastructure is just not there for this many houses right now. I mean, like I said before, there's just so many things are coming into us that are being built in these areas. The roads are still farm roads. They're not super highways. They're not big enough for this traffic. So that's my concern.
Louis?
Yes, I've looked this thing over, and I understand there's people out here with this kind of growth. I moved to Union County in 1999, fleeing the tremendous growth of Charlotte. I moved to Stallings, and I moved to Monroe just about 6 months ago because I couldn't drive my car to downtown anymore. It got so big. Growth is just happening. There's not much you can do about it. But on this particular development, 2 homes on an acre is not terrible considering some of the stuff I've seen been built in this county, for one thing. And for two, it's the first time that we've had a developer who's looked like they were fairly truthful with us. Our last time we were approving a age-targeted development. So how many houses off 2 stories? All of them. Well, targeted about foot. They just put that name up there just to convince us we should pass it. This has got all ranch houses because I'm a 75-year-old man. I know what those stairs are like at my age. They're kind of tough. And what I would say to you is it's not going to attract people with families and kids because there's no amenities for children there. Everything is designed to make old people happy, and that is not to make young people happy. So I feel like in most probability they'll be almost entirely a retirement community. It's gated. There's a lot of breaks that we get as taxpayers. We got to fix their roads. They don't consume all that much stuff. They don't impact our school system, and they certainly would have a lower impact than most other stuff. Now, if they would have said, we'd rather put up a manufacturing facility to do some high-tech manufacturing with no pollution and no drippings, I would go for that. But we're not doing that. This I think is the best you're going to get for residential development. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. You have any more comments?
Well, and I certainly sympathize with the roads. That's just like Highway 218 down there, and we clambered and clambered with DOT after all those people got killed. And finally, through the efforts of Mr. Black and people like that, that they've done that. But your road's not gonna change until you have the population. The state's not gonna build infrastructure for you until the need supersedes what reality is. And I'm sorry, that's the way it is. They're not gonna go out and build good roads and hope people will come. There's gonna be people who come, and then eventually they'll build good roads. I'm sorry. And also, we can't make decisions based on transportation. We have to follow what DOT says. We can't make decisions based on schools or overcapacity or undercapacity, because then we would be using a set of criteria which was not recognized by the courts. And I'm being just as blunt as I can possibly be. And so
what do you make your
Yeah, really, why are we here?
based on?
we're making recommendations on the fact that this is a zoning change.
And we don't want it.
That's exactly right. But what I'm trying to say is you need to make a decision, and you were talking about a while ago, that there'd only be 225 houses in there. There's gonna be more people if you have a 5-family home, 5-person home in that subdivision than there will be the 600 couples homes. And so that's the comment I'm gonna make, and I know the public session's over, and that's.
We don't want this to get out of hand, guys. Everybody's made a comment, closing comment except myself. I've got to be honest with you and tell you that I live in Waxhaw. Been there 6 years. I believe I've served on this board for 4. And I've met a lot of people. Waxhaw is the number one, number 2 town in South Carolina, I believe it is, for up-and-coming young families. And when you have that, you've got the grandparents that are here, there, and yonder. And the grandparents want to come down here and they want to live. And they're asking for places like what is before us tonight. And I've had a recent friend of mine that lived in Waxhaw that moved out of Anklin Forest, which is a very nice subdivision, like some of you folks live in the city limits, and they moved down to Mid-Hill. And I asked he and his wife, I said, what do you think about it? He said, hey, it's self-contained. We don't hardly ever go anywhere. He said, we just love it. The hospital's right here. We got all this, the amenity, I forgot what you call that place. Mr. Priestley, you called it a what? The amenity package or whatever it is. Said, you can't believe it. Said, you ought to come down sometime and take a look at it. And all. I'm concerned, like Charlie is and Patrick, I'd like to see if there's any way that could maybe condense that down from 600 to another figure. But that's not for me to decide or anything like that. But that's the way I feel on it.
That's your decision.
Pardon?
What are you for to make that decision?
Do what?
You said that wasn't.
I can't tell him how many houses to put in there.
That's why we're rezoning.
Yeah, we can. We wanna do it there. That's why they're coming to you
If
for the vote to rezone.
If it's 615, I can't tell him to put 615 or go down to 500. He needs to take another look at it.
You just told us a minute ago, would you have 200 or we agreed 200? You're asking us our feelings and our
We can ask,
concerns.
we've heard that.
Okay,
We
so
could
you
also
want
ask him to go back and readdress it. I'm not going to argue with you.
I'm looking for an argument. and I
Then it's,
appreciate
the
your service
public
on
comments are over with.
I'm just asking to look at what we're trying to convey to you.
We've heard you.
Okay.
We got pages of notes up here of what y'all have told
It
us.
seems like when we're heard, we get overruled.
So,
Your
I appreciate your
argument
comment.
sounded like a consent of suicide. Well, you know, we can tell you this and that, but we're feeling like going this way. You can see the lead, and it's incredulous.
very obvious for voted and official or however you make your seats. Just my point of view. Thank you.
Is there any other comment from this board?
Do what's right for the people.
Okay. Do we have a motion from the board if no board member has any more discussions? Is there a motion out there that needs to be made?
I'll make the motion that we approve it as presented, but I'm making the motion so that we can have a vote. We have to have a vote.
Okay, the motion has been made to approve it by Everett. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second by Louis. Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those against it, like sign. Lee, what's the count?
3, 4, 4 against.
Pardon?
3, 4, and 4 against.
4 against.
The motion failed.
The motion fails.
Yes, sir.
Now, from here, the applicants can still take it.
Probably need to do an alternative motion, just so we can have a.
Now, don't forget, when we vote on this, this goes to the Board of Commissioners now, and then they'll vote on it. Even though we voted 4-3.
They can overrule us.
Doesn't mean it's gonna stay like that, just so that you guys know. And when it comes up to them, you're welcome to be there to voice your opinions again.
Mr. Chairman, do we get the alternative motion then?
Is there an alternative motion?
I'll make a motion to disapprove the rezoning application.
Motion's been made by Robert. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, all those in favor,
Patrick, second. Hold on.
raise your right hand.
Against.
Okay. You got the count then, Lee?
Yes, 4-3 in favor. To deny, to make a motion, to make a recommendation to the commissioners to
But
deny.
let it be perfectly clear, as Patrick said, this can be overruled at the commissioner's side. No disrespect to anybody here. We do our best job that we can. We hear you.
Thank you.
Don't ever say we don't hear you.
To you all.
I asked you when we got started to make this civil, and I want to end it civil.
May I ask just to recap what the vote was? I'm unclear about.
There was a, yes, the motion to send a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to deny the rezoning was what passed. It was 4-3.
It passed 4-3.
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
Thank you.
And before anybody leaves, if you got a notice for this meeting, you'll also get a notice for the public hearing. That should be on, it won't be the normal Monday because that's Labor Day. It should be the next day.
The 9th as opposed to the 2nd.
No, I believe it'll be that Tuesday.
Thank you.
I think they normally will set that a little bit later, but,
It'll be on the September the 3rd.
yeah.
At
That's normally what they do.
6
o'clock.
6 o'clock instead of 7 on the 3rd. If we commented, am I going to get something in that?
Is your name and address on it? Yes.
Okay, at this point, this ends the public portion of the meeting. You're welcome to stay if you want to hear a staff report. But other than that, you're free to go for those of you that came in. Lee, Dick, planning staff
Thank you for
report.
coming.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And no disrespect, man.
Well, give us just 1 second until everybody.
Pardon?
Let everybody clear out first.
Give it just 1 second until everybody kind of clears out so we can all hear. Okay. So As far as planning staff report goes, we are about to kick off the update of the comp plan. That is something that you guys will be heavily involved in. Typically, you update a comp plan about every 5 years. We're at that 5-year mark. The current comp plan was adopted in 2014, so it's time to update it. Lots of times an update involves just updating demographic information. This update we feel like will be a little more in depth. It'll probably be a rewrite of the plan. So it's going to be a large undertaking. It's going to be done almost completely in-house. We do have some funding to go out and get some help with graphics and things like that because none of us are good drawers. But but we do have a little bit of money to help with that.
Did you get your planner? Your actual
It is currently being advertised, yes.
Okay.
We did
You
get
haven't
it.
gotten
We
it
did
with
get
it.
it, yes. That process will officially kick off at the end of this month on August the 28th and 29th. The Board of Commissioners is holding a two sessions. One, the first day, the 28th, they're inviting the towns to come in and present their visions for their communities to the board. The board wants to hear that, wants to take that into consideration when they go through and update the comp plan. And the second day will be county planning staff presenting some background information, how the county's changed since 2014 in terms of demographics and growth type issues. And we're going to lay out the process that we sort of designed that we feel like we need to go through to update the plan. That'll involve lots of community meetings, lots of staff, not staff input, but lots of community input, several stakeholder groups. We'll be leaning on you guys heavily as part of that plan development. These are public meetings. If the board wants to attend, that's fine. Just let us know if you want to come. So if we have 4 members, we can call a meeting. The 28th and 29th of August. Yeah, it'll be at the Ag Center.
Ag Center.
And they're all day.
Will you send us a reminder on that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Check some calendars.
But it is the official kickoff, and like I said, we sort of view this as more than likely being almost a complete rewrite. It's one of those things that you adopt a plan. We adopted this plan in 2014. It was really good. It's better than any plan the county's ever had before, but then you start getting into it, and you notice that there's probably some warts and probably some things that we get cleaned up, and maybe expand some places, and retract some things somewhere, and so that's what we want to do.
So we'll get a new one of these, right?
Well, do you want of these?
The plan.
The plan.
Oh, the plan,
Yeah,
okay, all
yeah,
right, okay,
yeah.
excuse me, yeah, I've got that at the house, okay. Yeah.
Be sure to mark y'all's calendars. The next one is on September the 11th. It's on a Wednesday night. We, some time ago, back at the first of the year,
Right.
we looked at the times when there would be a conflict with the Board of Commissioners.
Right.
And Labor Day was one of them.
Thanks for
Y'all-
reminding me, I'd forgot about that.
Y'all
Thanks.
selected, again, it's
Good.
September the 11th, which is a Wednesday.
Same day as the Monroe City Council meeting. I have not had that one since I've been here.
The 11th.
And we probably will have a meeting, so,
Probably.
yeah.
Okay, is there any more information from the staff?
No, sir.
Any comments from up here? Robert? Any comments before we close? Charlie? Patrick?
I'm good.
Everett?
No comment.
No comment.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Thank you, Charlie. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Who was the first and second? I never came quite.
First and
They
second.
get some shit in that place. Didn't get shit in there in 2 years.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
I know that.